Hello, everybody. We're running about 2 minutes late tonight. My apologies. We're going to kick it off with the stranding of the flirt. I'll put a link in later. And I'll be right back when this song is almost over. See you in a couple minutes. It's a great song. James Lucid on YouTube.
Come gather, good people, I'll sing ye a song of whales on the shoreline, laid heavy and wrong. The tide bore its burden, a sorrowful sight. The strandings o' the firth in the dead o' the night. They came in their hundreds, the dolphin, the whale, driven to shallows with a sorrowful tale. The learned men muttered on nets and no noise, but the seas bear a tally that none can disguise. So order a half and a half at the bar. From Fukushima's waters the fallout sails far. Clap hands on the table, let everyone ken. The strandings o' the firth mark the folly o' men. They'll talk all the weather, they'll talk all the storm. They'll scribble their numbers to keep with the norm. But the count only rises, the carcasses show a reckoning carry wherever tides go. From Rasse to Moray, the tidings run grim. The porpoise and mink now drift at the brim. Yet silence in council halls buries the cost, for silver and power would sooner them lost. So order a half and a half at the bar. From Fukushima's waters the fallout sails far. Clap hands on the table, let everyone ken. The strandings o' the firth mark the folly o' men. And if ye should wander the shoreline at dawn, where once the great singers and dancers had gone, remember the silence, remember the sound. The strandings o' the firth where the warning is found. So order a half and a half at the bar. From Fukushima's waters the fallout sails far. Clap hands on the table, let everyone ken. The strandings o' the firth mark the folly o' men. So order a half and a half at the bar. From Fukushima's waters the fallout sails far. Clap hands on the table, let everyone ken. The strandings o' the firth mark the folly o' men.
Well, so 185 mile per hour winds when it came ashore. Apparently there was no wind gust. There was no damage. There's a lot of AI videos all day. I don't think it was an accident. I just got off work. I'm still suited up. I apologize. The life of a busy person. So my heart goes out to all the victims. We don't know how bad it is. Media has some pretty extraordinary story going on here tonight. Just bear with me. So we got a poll. Is it pointless to rebuild Jamaica. So you've been living, your grandparents lived in the same piece of land, his parents, your dad, great-great-grandpappy, his great-great-grandpappy, his great-great-great-grandpappy, grandmama, lived in the same patch of land. And over the last couple of years, storms have gotten pretty darn unbearable. And now we're talking about 185 miles per hour winds. According to the media, the wind doesn't gust. Quite unusual. And so, say your house, when 185 mile per hour wind, even if it doesn't gust, and you can be sure it's going to gust 240, 250, but let's say it doesn't gust, it's only 185. So 185 mile per hour, there's no building codes on the planet for that number. So you got 185 mile per hour wind. And that's one thing the media agreed upon today. Worldwide, the media agreed 185 mile per hour wind. Is it pointless to rebuild Jamaica because the hurricanes are going to get stronger? Does that make any sense? Would you rebuild your house if your house got blown apart, and you survived at 185 miles per hour and gusting 200? It's going to gust at least 30%. But when we're talking about extreme numbers, and these are the biggest numbers we've ever seen, certainly for North America, like for actual coming ashore. Now, in Jamaica, the building codes in Jamaica are pretty lax. And a lot of the houses have already been destroyed multiple times, so there's a lot of shanties, a lot of temporary, let's call it temporary, we can't call them shelters, but they just jammed it together with pieces of wood and roofs that were found after major storms. What would be the point of rebuilding? I don't mean any disrespect to the people in Jamaica or Haiti's next, or Cuba, Haiti, and everywhere else is about to get slammed. So 185 is the record. Let me get this rolling here first. It's kind of astounding to me, but what? My apologies. It's a bit crazy. Okay, let's try this. Bear with me. There we go. All right. CBS 185 miles per hour. So what I'm going to show you is media that came up with that headline today. So 185 miles per hour. Have you been in a storm at 100 miles per hour? Have you seen the damage? Usually houses are tipped over, right? Minimum. There's trucks will get tipped over. And one of the first things you're going to hear the media talking about is dysentery, diarrhea, pneumonia, airborne, waterborne diseases from dead animals, dead water, mosquitoes, everything else, right? We never heard any of that narrative today whatsoever. Nothing. Category 5, and winds with 185 mile per hour wind. With 185 mile per hour wind, we heard that over and over everywhere today, nonstop. Now, pre-nuclear industry, Fukushima in particular, rather, there would always be, you would never see winds like this. First off. Well, you have, right after the nuclear industry, done all the nuclear testing and created this environment where this is able to take place. But bear with me, I'm pretty sure I'm not wasting your time if you hear me out. with 185 mile per hour winds. 185. So can you comprehend 185? Have you driven 185 miles per hour? Have you, if you're driving 185 miles per hour, would you stick your arm out the window? Would you let your child stick their arm out the window? Would you let your pet put their head out the window? Would you have your window open? There's a whole lot of connotations, right? 185 mile per hour slams Jamaica with 185 mile per hour winds. Well, that's right. That's appropriate. I think, catastrophic flooding, but when you got 130 mile per hour wind, that's considered, my goodness, right? That's oh my goodness. 140 is considered, we are in real dire straits here. 150 miles per hour winds is terrifying, right? 165 mile per hour winds is just incomprehensible for me, you, and probably anybody else on this planet. 175 mile per hour winds is just mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling. It can't possibly get worse than that. 185 mile per hour winds. So if you're going to have an 185 mile per hour winds, are you going to rebuild your house? Because the next storm has the possibility of going even stronger. Now, we're going to pretend that wind doesn't gust, because that's what the media done all day today. They pretend that the wind doesn't gust. There is no such thing as a gust. But the reality of it is you're probably looking at 100 miles per hour gust when you're talking about these numbers. And most equipment is not designed to measure these types of numbers, because this is numbers that pre-Fukushima we used to talk about on Mars. Well, it's going to be hard to live on Mars because they have storms at 160 mile per hour, 170 mile per hour winds. We don't have any infrastructure on Earth for 185 mile per hour wind because that's not normal. That's why we don't have it. Will you give me that? Will you agree with that? Is that sensible? Am I stuttering? And so 185 mile per hour winds, which everybody agreed happened, surpassing 200. That was the rare occasion. So really, it only gusted 15 miles per hour at 185 miles an hour. Really? You should lose your degree for saying something like that. Departs Jamaica is a powerful Category 3. This is not true either. 185 mile per hour wind didn't lose its energy. In fact, it was blowing 175 miles per hour yesterday afternoon, and it done that all yesterday afternoon, hour after hour after hour. In 24 hours, it was blowing 185 miles per hour. It didn't lose any speed. And when it got into shallow water, the water is much more hot, and Jamaica is known for for hot temperatures, right? And so it can't slow down. It's going to speed up. It's going to come ashore, not at 185 miles per hour, which is the speed it was doing about 3 hours before it came ashore. When it comes ashore, it's going to be at least 195, maybe 200 miles per hour, because it's in shallow water. The land is tinder dry, right? They're suffering a significant drought. And this is going to enhance the wind speeds. So what happened today was the worst storm we've ever seen. It's not the third worst storm, which is what they're making out. It's not tied for the third worst storm. It is the worst storm. And how do you make a distinction between 185, which is everybody agreed, everybody, without exception, every single media on the entire planet agrees that it was 185 miles per hour. Everybody do. There's no disagreement whatsoever. Nothing. No dissenting voices whatsoever. Except for me and you, maybe, right? I think it's quite telling that part of the story on its own. I think that warrants significant investigation. I think there should be special prosecutors assigned to hunt down the people that orchestrated this particular narrative, that would even suggest for a second that this storm didn't increase the speed when it came ashore. And the fastest storm up to yesterday was 190 miles per hour coming ashore, which is post-Fukushima storm, by the way. And it suggests that this storm, which was peeling rubber yesterday afternoon, and it's after 10 o'clock at night my time right here, and maintained that speed all day yesterday, all last night, all this morning, all this afternoon, and then picked up to about 3 hours before it made landfall to 185, and everybody agrees with that. Nobody is arguing with me about that. There is no argument about that. All the media has come out and said with 185 miles per hour wind. There is no debate about this whatsoever. This is the assertion, which made it the third worst storm in history. And the other ones are post-Fukushima and post-nuclear industry. Hit with 185 mile per hour wind. There is nobody questioning that narrative. Nobody. But we never found any footage reflecting this. We found an absurd amount of artificial intelligence, tampered footage, and absurd, to the point where I gave up. It was literally everywhere, and then the media, of course, was all regurgitating this one narrative. And some of them were doing TikTok dances, and some of them were doing Twitter dances in the newsroom, and they were, oh, good morning, everybody, how are you doing today? These are not, it's normal, you would hope that this would have some prominence attached to it. Well, you would imagine this has some prominence attached to it. You think in a normal world where we drink water and we breathe fresh air, that we would attach some prominence to this. Why would you rebuild anything in a place where the winds, and everybody agrees with that, came ashore, and your building codes were for about 60 miles per hour? And so everything that 185 miles per hour touches is going to get turned into a projectile. It's going to be torn apart like a hamster in a hamster cage chewing up fresh paper. And you come back an hour later and everything's chipped up, right? But what we're talking about is all that wood and all that material and all that infrastructure. Automobiles are turned into projectiles, are picked up by these winds and thrown. We have no footage of that. We have no media talking about airborne diseases and diarrhea, pneumonia, or first aid, because you know you're going to have a lot of people hurt with these projectiles flying around. There was nothing. It was nothing. The entire day, there was nothing. If that's not extraordinary, what actually is? The censorship you can see on me is madness. Excuse me. Hi, Dana. Hi, everybody. So what is the next storm going to be? 190? 189. It can't be 190, because then that'll be the worst storm. They can't have that happen again so soon as the last one. So it'll probably be 186. And the next storm after that, they might begrudgingly come out and say, well, it was 187. And the next one after that will be 187 and a half. And the next one after that will be 187 and 3/4. And they'll go back to 175 or 185 and they'll start that whole routine over again. They won't cross that 185 miles per hour. I don't care. It'll blow every window out of your house. It'll blow the furniture out of the hotels. It'll blow all the doors off the hinges. All the cupboards in the kitchen will go flying out the other side of the building. People will be blown out of those buildings. This footage, if you can see the footage, would be something you couldn't even imagine. You couldn't perceive without physically seeing it yourself. You couldn't grasp the sound without headphones on and a perfect audio device capturing those sounds. And there's examples of cars going 185 miles per hour. You can find lots of examples of that. You can hear the noise. People on the land with cameras are zoomed in on it. And when that car goes past the camera at 185 miles per hour, all you can say is, wow. What was that? You don't know the color of that car. You can't tell the shape of that car. You can't tell how many people were in that car. And the roar would be deafening. 185 miles per hour was just a sustained speed. The wind gust would have been 50 to 60 miles above that. I would imagine we had gust at 400 kilometers plus an hour, minimum on the mountain ranges at least, if not in the communities. How can you have 185 miles per hour? And everybody agrees with that. Nobody's arguing with me. Nobody's saying, no, Dana, you're wrong. Because I'm not. All the media has already come out and acknowledged that. And I have a stupid amount of it documented. What I couldn't document was wind gusts. And brother and sister, let me assure you that you don't want to know what the numbers are for wind gusts. But I can tell you something. It's at least 250 miles per hour or 400 kilometers an hour. How many of you people drove drove to work or to the corner store at 400 kilometers an hour to get some ice cream? But there was no gust, Dana. You're a conspiracy theorist. For being logical, for having critical thinking skills. I've been shunting on the internet tonight. Same as every night. Because I don't make sense. Nothing I'm saying makes any sense clearly. It's absurd to suggest that 185 mile per hour winds is different, is special, is unique. I got up 6:30 this morning. My show ends at midnight. In fact, last night was a bit later. So when the show was over, plop, get in bed. As soon as I open one eye, straight on my feet again, get out and start documenting everything. Because that's what we do, right? We document everything. And we see these discrepancies. Let's be polite. They're not polite. What they're doing is unconscionable. What your media is doing is it's not media. They're attacking you. They're ridiculing you. They're mocking you. But they're endangering you by not being even a wee bit honest. They're downplaying it because they don't want another record-breaking storm when the nuclear industry is desperate to get a renaissance. And these storms are a result of 80 years of emissions into the environment. And for the average person who has no concept of that, I get that. I totally understand that. I'll give you another example of bizarre media. Here's the media pretending they're at Fukushima Reactor 4. I'm just going to play that video.
What I'm standing is on top of what used to be.
Now I'm going to turn it down a little bit. This is a video that I made 12 years ago. I made this. This is just for the media pretending they're 140 feet above the stump to your left. Now, why would the media worldwide and the universities participate in that type of a lie? Because the storms from it are, and I'll explain that to you coming up in a second. I'll be right back. It's only less than a minute.
Where I'm standing is on top of what used to be reactor building number 4. The whole of this building was blown apart by a huge explosion.
We are here inside Reactor 4 at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant that was severely crippled during the earthquake and tsunami of 2011.
Of the decommissioning work taking place here in Reactor 4.
At the end of our tour, we were checked for radiation exposure. In 4 hours, I received the equivalent of less than a chest x-ray.
1,500 highly radioactive fuel rods inside this pool. They've got to move them outside of this reactor.
So how many people think that they're 140 feet above the stump to your left at Fukushima? Raise your hands. Security, get that guy over there with his hands raised and throw him out. He's with the nuclear industry. Do you think the media that are saying they're on top of that building should have to answer to that? This is ABC Australia, Cecilia Vega behind me. CNN. BBC, Rupert Winfield Hayes, who done a video saying he's in Reactor 3 too, which coincidentally doesn't exist. I can't even wrap my mind around this story today. That let me go back for a second. The fuel pools are at the top of these 190-foot, 19-story, 65-meter buildings. 10 thumbs up, 13 votes on the poll, two voting me down. Not that I care about that stuff. I'll survive. You know, I apologize for being honest. I know it's just crazy. But I'm actually a bad person because I'm honest. And I care about you, and I care about your loved ones. I care about your friends. I care about your families. I care about your pets. I care about the whales and birds and insects, and mammals and animals, and the biota, and the microscopic world, and the phytoplankton. I care about it. I truly do. This is 2 of the 4 reactors in Japan that melted down, but officially they got all the fuel out of those buildings. Nothing got out, less than a gram out of Reactor 2, and nothing got out of these buildings. So how does that work? So nuclear and anthropogenic man-made radiation fallout is the only emission, not sand, not carbon from gas, oil, and coal, which means more birds, more babies, more puppies, more people, more trees, more plants, more fruit, more vegetables. This is a plume study, not a model, not a projection, not a conjecture, but an actual model based upon a increase in radioactive fallout in North America. This is the French government's model. There's a lot of these studies, rather, that quantify the radioactive fallout worldwide. This study is 23 days, and per cubic meter of air from the surface to the upper atmosphere was 1 million to 10 million atoms of cesium-137 per cubic meter of air. This is worldwide in 23 days. So think of an invisible snowstorm, and after 23 days, the entire planet is covered in snow. Now, consider the snow will never stop snowing, ever. And the snow that's landing will never go away, it'll never melt. Now, this particular is radiation, so you can't see it or smell it or hear it or feel it or taste it or touch it or pick it up or throw rocks at it or perceive it or anything else. But It's the same thing as a snowstorm covering the entire planet in 23 days, but it's a continuous plume covering the entire planet. And each atom, and you put 200 million atoms on the head of a needle and you still can't see it. But each atom is pulsing energy almost at the speed of light, 600 feet. Now, in these plumes, it's not just going to be cesium-137. It doesn't... the biggest byproduct of the radioactive fuel rods from the nuclear meltdowns is curium isotopes. And curium isotopes, you need lead shielding 20 times thicker than you do for plutonium. And there was a ridiculous amount of plutonium in these reactors and fuel pools. There was 8 fuel pools with an average of around 8 reactor cores in each building. There's 4 buildings. And 1 reactor for each core. It's around 36 reactor cores. These were massive reactor cores. Chernobyl was a new reactor. It was a small reactor. It was a graphite reactor. It didn't have any fuel pools at the top of the buildings. It was just a single small graphite reactor. It was brutal. It was brutal. These reactors are pure uranium, pure plutonium. So each one of these reactors in Japan, and there's 36 of them or so lost, each reactor core was equal to about 100 Chernobyls. And Chernobyl, one of the facets, a few of the facets you might not be familiar with about Chernobyl because the nuclear industry has an incredible amount of influence in universities and schools and medias. They literally will never be fact-checked. They'll never be questioned on top of that. In United Kingdom, Ireland, Scotland, after Chernobyl, they closed 9,400 farms because of radioactive fallout. And each one of the reactors at Japan, there's around 36 that were atomized in aerosol and ionized and released into the environment, and fuel particulates that are still splitting atoms wherever they landed or wherever they're floating around to. We've been releasing it worldwide from 1,000 fuel pools nonstop. But Japan, Fukushima, was a pulse event. Does that make sense? Is that a difficult concept? No, of course not, right? And so this, think of an invisible snowstorm for 80 years. It never stops coming out from 1,000 different sites, fuel pools. We're not counting all the dumping. We're not counting all the meltdowns. All the meltdowns covers up. We're not counting the Manhattan Project that was dumped into the environment in many different countries. And the race to build a bomb that you can't use. Hanford, just for the Manhattan Project, just one instance of when they were first starting this. They didn't know what they were doing, but they knew it was very toxic, very lethal, would melt your organs. And so what they dumped 450 billion gallons of sludge. So this was dehydrated sludge. So who knows how much catastrophic amounts were released into the environment through the dehydration, which typically is done by heating up the material and evaporating the water. This water would be lethal doses for everything got replicating cells, the emissions from that, because it was equal to an aquarium 6 feet wide, 518 feet tall, wrapped around the entire planet more than once. Of radioactive sludge that is splitting atoms on the likes of the average person will never, ever be able to, unfortunately, comprehend. Otherwise, the nuclear industry could never exist. And so these plumes, and Fukushima being a pulse event, we have seen these supercell cyclones, supercell typhoons, supercell hurricanes manifest into these storms that the pre-nuclear industry, we've never seen that before. And today, all the media worldwide agreed that, and then they say to have 200 mile per hour winds, that's an outlier right there. That's a very unusual. Everybody basically stuck, 185 miles per hour winds. And I've never, if I know for a fact that if 120 mile wind hits here, where I'm to, it'll destroy every house that wind touches. And so the media today that was regurgitating this narrative was also out there saying, and over and over and over, the original footage when it was coming ashore was Hurricane Melissa, with winds of 185 miles per hour, were tearing up bits of roofs. That's how they framed it. It was such a bizarre thing to say, bits of roof. 185 mile per hour winds don't tear up bits of roof. That's like a category 2 does that. These are category 7s, categories 8s. We only have a category 5, but these should be, these are not survivable for humans or animals or mammals or anything else. All the species, I don't know, who knows how bad that's going to be. And so normally the media would be postulating about airborne diseases, waterborne diseases, dysentery, diarrhea, pneumonia, cuts and bruisings and bleeding and broken limbs for storms much less severe than this. And then for wind gusts, people would be arguing between 240, 265 miles per hour wind gust, at least 400 kilometers an hour wind gust. And by doing that, you bring some prominence to that equation, right? But because this is going to be the new norm, and they're going to try to blame it on your tin cans, your pop bottles, your cardboard, 185 mile per hour winds. Yahoo, of course, big media. 185 mile per hour winds. You guessed it, 184 miles per hour winds. 185 mile per hour winds, rather. 185 mile. Are we seeing a pattern? Has anybody seen a pattern? Is that just me? Am I losing my mind? Have I lost my mind? Because I think I'm seeing a pattern. My goodness. What have we done to this poor planet? And Japan will be fighting the radiation releases for at least 100 years. Many have suggested 1,000 years. The problem was we lost the entire inventories of these reactors in 5 days. Not 5 weeks, not 5 months, not 5 years, but in 5 days. And this was distributed worldwide. And it's the only emitter that has the attributes like this, where the plume will cover the whole planet. Gas, oil, and coal emissions is carbon. Wherever carbon lands, you got more plants, more trees, more vegetables, more insects, more insects with birds and fish and frogs, and right, there's the whole cycle of life with carbon. Carbon is the cycle of life. If we don't have carbon, we're going to look like the moon. But no, you got to worry about carbon. Don't worry about this. And don't worry about that over there, because your loving media, who just came out and lied to you about this today and suggest are the same media that pretended that they were on top of a building that don't exist. Why would they take that chance? Because they have the confidence that no other media is going to call them out and that no universities are going to challenge their narrative. And that I made this particular video 12 years ago. Hoo-hoo, I got them now. I can't wait to play the video. And I probably played this video in the last 12 years. I shudder to think how much I played it. I've showed it every show. And I'm basically the only person that shows it. And if you don't see that here, you'll never see it anywhere else. That is just as frightening to me as 185 mile per hour winds. I don't know about you, but that's some coincidence. It's just 185 mile an hour. Oh, what's the kids doing the weekend, Georgie? All the medias are doing TikTok dances. Hey, everybody! Welcome to Fox 7. John Slater for the live stream of the 185 mile per hour winds. Woo-hoo-hoo. It's going to be special. So special. I know there's 3 times a day where I just poked myself in the eye to make sure I was awake. Make sure I wasn't dreaming. Make sure that... No, the planet is 100% full of media scum, degenerate, monstrous, hideous. Just... Like, you know, I don't know. I don't think anybody else ever does. But I can't comprehend what could be going through the heads of these unscrupulous, these nefarious, these sadistic, disgusting, gruesome, unnatural. This is unnatural. It's beyond contempt, right? It's inexcusable. It's unforgivable. It's shameful. It's terrorism. This is terrorism. To come out, pretend they're on a building that don't exist, and pretend that the wind coming ashore at 185 miles per hour doesn't warrant anything more than an AI video. No mercy for 3 million people. And why would you build your home in a land that is now hideous, that is unspeakable, that, there's no guarantee that you'll even get the house finished before another one of these shows up. And if there's a pattern going on post-Fukushima, besides all the emaciated birds and all the emaciated whales, all the emaciated animals dying worldwide, you'll have no grey whales left in less than 2 years. They're all emaciated. The 13,000 that are left, there's 14,000 died since Fukushima, which is over half. And the 13,000 grey whales that are left last year were emaciated on their 12,000-mile migratory route to Baja, California. Already had no surviving babies last year. 13,000 whales were emaciated, and they're emaciated this year. So it's highly unlikely they'll make it to where they're to the feeding grounds, because there's not going to be any food there. There's no food along the way. And I think the world, another scary thing is AI. Because AI is going to be used to stop people like me or you from having a conversation, and it's going to be used to just bombard anybody trying to appreciate the equation with the industry's propaganda machines. And they're prolific. We know there's over 1,000 public relation firms whose only job is to protect the nuclear industry and promote the nuclear industry. And they work hand in hand with UN's TAC groupies like IAEA, UNSCLEAR, ERPA, the IPRCs, the radiation. These are limp, weak, feeble, vile, sinister, shameless examples of what a human shouldn't be. I'm stunned that we have denigrated humanity to this point. We're 185 mile per hour wind. We're 185 mile per hour wind doesn't get any kind of prominence whatsoever. Who cares? 185. How's it? You got to buy a new iPhone with 185 mile per hour wind. Am I the only one who's seen the pattern today? On a good note, Shinzo Abe doesn't exist anymore. He poisoned the entire planet with food from a nuclear wasteland, and the entire world media just sat there and let him do it. It's such a the media doesn't have to be this hateful towards humanity and the species. We got 80 years of the media. People go to university for 4 or 5 years and get a degree as a journalist. And then one of their first jobs is to come out and bend the knee and kiss the ring of the nuclear industry. And they do it like this. They'll write articles saying any kind of nuclear event is like eating a banana or walking in sunshine or flying on an airplane. And they'll write 2 or 3 paragraphs and they'll get a vacation. They'll take their family on a cruise for 2 weeks and they'll put a new addition on their house. And then the next time they write an article, the wife gets a new car and the kids join soccer and they're invited to the most prestigious tournaments, and the list goes on and on. All they got to do is come out and lie to you and pretend that to their friends and families and the people that are gullible and naive that they're somehow magically actually good people. Is the biggest mistake we've ever made, and it's not tenable to let them get away with this. For the record, I'm advising that it's wrong. It's bad. And because I'm censored beyond any concept, I'm kettled in, right? They have me kettled in for a long time, too. In so many ways that the average person can't even perceive that evil like that actually exists. And let me give you some insight to why they hate me. This hopefully helps you appreciate why they hate me so much. Here we go. We spent 6 years doing research expeditions after Fukushima. I spent 6 years, 4 to 5 months a year on the ocean, doing research expeditions for I do species counts. From Vancouver, British Columbia, behind me, all the way up to Alaska. And I'll be out there for 4 to 5 months a year by myself. And the species to your left, and I've took hundreds of thousands of pictures, an absurd amount of underwater footage, an absurd amount of videos, etc., etc., etc. And we document the whole coast. I provide GPSs of everywhere I went and everywhere I documented. And we repeated it year after year. And the reason that was because the species to the left are missing. So I had to go back year after year to see if the species to the left started to recover. Some of these headlines you can appreciate. 2012, cesium remained dispersed throughout the water column from the surface to the ocean floor. From the surface, it's not only from the surface to the upper troposphere, it's from the surface also to the ocean floor. That's cesium. The species to your left are very vulnerable, and that's the nursery of the ocean. There's 30,000 insects at the high tide line. And one of the stories that they didn't really recognize, but this was one of the stories where they actually tried to explain it away. He said the shellfish and the mussels and the clams and the oysters and the little necks, the manillas, the razorback clams, the periwinkles, the starfish, the sea urchins, the kelp, the algae, had cancer that was spread from one species to another like a virus. So they were trying to explain away what we discovered on our research expeditions. Was the species to your left are exterminated. And so I had to go back for 5 more years to make sure, and we hoped and prayed we were wrong, but we went back for 5 more years to see if the species to your left recovered. Did I do a good thing? Was I a good person for doing that? Because they arrested me and gave me gag orders, so I couldn't tell you about some of the lawyers that work for them, by the way, for 3.5 years. The species to your left are exterminated. I know because I went back there year after year. And year after year, I went back and done species counts. The species to your left are exterminated. They're not almost exterminated. They're not going to be exterminated in the near future. They're exterminated, period. Would you rather have 27,000 islands just in British Columbia, not counting Alaska, not counting California, not counting Mexico and everywhere else? Would you rather have the species to your left or nuclear power, which hasn't changed in its capacity of gigawatts worldwide since the 90s. It's the same gigawatts now as it was in the 90s. There's no nuclear renaissance. There's a kill a human, kill a species renaissance, and it's going good. It's going good. The species to your left are exterminated. It's been 6 years doing that, 4 to 5 months a year. And the minute I come ashore, that very day, that very night, I sat here in front of a camera every day after till I went out on more research expeditions, and I begged this planet to fight with me, to stand alongside of me at least. Or give me a like anyway, please. Do something to acknowledge that we got a problem. And I've been attacked and demonized and vilified and smeared beyond concept. But yet, I'm still here because they're not. And I think we owe it to the species to have at least somebody on the entire planet that is honest and is willing to tell you the truth and willing to go out and put his life on the line day after day. And I was out there on the ocean by myself month after month after month in desperation to document the extermination of the species on your planet in the most prolific and the biggest ocean on the planet, which produces over 50% of the oxygen for the planet. And the 30,000 insects that were at the high tide are also all gone. All the species are gone. Are the species, do they count? Are they worth protecting? Was those species to the left that was on all 27,000 islands that are now gone, was that pretty cool or not? Was that a little bit of magic or not? If you were on a research expeditions and the species to the left were everywhere you went, would that make you all warm and fuzzy inside? Would you look forward to waking up the next day and getting on the beach and experiencing that? Now, I worked as a commercial diver for over a decade. I have thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of hours underwater working on the ocean floor. But I also ran some of the biggest fleets on the planet. I was averaging, when I was a commercial diver, 300 days a year on the ocean. You could say I was hardcore. Or you could say I just really, 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 really loved the species. You know, I grew up with Jack Cousteau collection, encyclopedia, and wherever I had a spot in the house, wherever I would, if I would sit at the table, or if I would sit on this part of the couch, or in the bathroom, or in the bedroom, or wherever, there was 1 or 2 or 3 volumes of Jack Cousteau's encyclopedia. And so it was probably no big surprise that I'd done those things and then ended up doing these things, right? That shouldn't be no big surprise. Because I coveted that. I considered these species my friend. And every day you had 100 fish following you around looking for scraps. And I used to try to name them. And I went out there and got busted up in storms and hurricanes, I don't know how many times. I done thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars worth of damage to that little fleet on a number of occasions. And to limp into ports and raise the money and fix everything and repair everything, get back out on the ocean, start the research again for 6 years. And then I'm trying to come here, even though I'm old and broken and boring now, I still come here, try to 5 days a night, to tell you that story. Because that haunts me. What I experienced and what I saw and what I documented haunts me. It haunts me. And that if I don't tell the story, I feel guilty. Every day that I don't tell this story is a guilty day for me. It's a day that I always regret. It's a day I'm ashamed of. But I'm old and I'm broken now. I'm not young anymore. And so it's very hard for me to come here every night to tell you this important story that I think is important. I believe it's important. I feel it's important. Just like I feel 185 mile per hour winds is important. 185 mile per hour winds, nobody's arguing with that. Everybody agrees with it was 185 mile per hour wind that came ashore, but there's no damage, there's no videos of the catastrophe, there's no concern about airborne and waterborne diseases and stagnant water and mosquitoes. There's no concerns about dysentery and diarrhea and pneumonia. There's no concerns about the injured, the sick, the vulnerable, the pregnant women. 3 million people, there got to be a lot of pregnant women there. They must need a lot of diapers anyway, a lot of milk. There's a lot of elderly people that are going to need pharmaceuticals. They're going to need certain types of health care. They're going to need access to medications. They're going to need respiratory dialysis for the kidneys. They're going to need... Just because they live on an island that we maybe never went to, that don't mean they don't have the same hopes and dreams as me and you. But 185 mile per hour wind, it didn't have, the media didn't have the fortitude to acknowledge the enormity of what this is and what it means and what it's going to do. Instead, they decided they needed to cover it up because nobody would want to go. 4 million people wouldn't want to go to Jamaica again because they would be scared. And because they should be scared, and because they have every right to be scared, and that they should never be put in harm's way, knowing that this could happen again and again and again. And that, why would you rebuild in a land that has this legacy? Why would you do that? What would the catalyst be to do it? Oh, well, my pappy, my great-great-grandpappy, his great-great-grandpappy, and his great-great-grandpappy lived there. Damn it, I'm going to live there. But they didn't live with 185 mile per hour winds. You don't have a right to make that decision for your children. Well, we're going to stay here because Daddy's grandpa and great-grandpa and his great-great-grandma and grandpa lived here. So we're going to live here, no matter what. Because we can handle that. No, you can't. All the media agrees this much today. That has sustained winds of 185 miles per hour. And I can tell you something, 185 mile per hour winds is the most scariest thing you'll ever live through. And you better pray there is no such thing as a gust if you're in that environment. You will hope. In fact, at 150 mile per hour winds, you're going to think it's blowing 200. Everything is turned into projectiles. No matter which building you're in, you're listening to these projectiles hitting your building, and it's a noise that you'll never forget and you'll never get used to, and it will haunt you for the rest of your life. And imagine if you're a child, and that if you took the elderly, most oldest people on that planet, they won't be able to tell you a story similar. And I don't have the ability to not come out here and tell the story. I won't sleep tonight or tomorrow night or the night after if I don't come out here. And I know I'm old and fucking stupid and ugly and I heard it all. I can't look in the mirror if I don't come out here and try to be rational. And sometimes it's really difficult because this is not rational. I'm not telling people that they shouldn't rebuild in Jamaica because of some bigotous or racist or prejudice or bias beliefs. I'm telling them because I care about them. Because I fear for them. I fear for their pets. I fear for their grandparents and their children and their babies. I fear for their culture. I fear for their genetics. I fear because you would too if you went through this. And if you took the pro-nuclear community down there and put them in this environment and let them survive the night, they would stop being pro-nuclear the next day. I can tell you that much. And "185 mile per hour winds I don't know what that's like. I've been on the bow of the boat in hurricanes where it's like 110 miles per hour. I'm in shelter. I'm sheltered. I'm trying not to drag anchor, and I'm up on the bow. And I cannot reach down and grab the bow line to give it a yank to see if I'm dragging anchor. And I remember nights where I slept at the wheel with the engine running all night, waiting for the anchor line to either break or drag, so that I could immediately put it in gear, get the crew out of the bunk because they slept in all their gear, and they would go out, we get that anchor back, and we would go reset that anchor. I don't know how many times I've done that. But I can't comprehend 185 mile per hour sustained winds, and I absolutely can't comprehend the wind gust that would go with something like that, which is going to be far surpassing the 30% standards for wind gust. Because when you're at these numbers, and when you're talking about tunneling, so think about how the wind tunnels up the mountains. This is a well-known shear, right? Wind shear. It'll go up a mountain. Where I'm to, there's a mountain range where regularly, heavy storms, transport trucks will tip over in high winds because of the way it funnels through. But there's another known facet to that story, is that at the base of that area where it draws in from the ocean, that becomes extreme winds too. So it sucks the wind from down by the ocean, it goes up the side of the hill, up through the valleys, and over the other side. But that's like a great big vacuum cleaner all the way to the ocean. I can't even begin to comprehend what that would be like. I don't know. I don't have an experience with anything like that. And many times I've tried to imagine it, because since Fukushima, nuclear event, a catastrophic event, and if you don't understand that subject, go to my playlist and look at the die-off videos. Open up the full playlist, and you're going to see dozens and dozens and dozens of videos of recent die-offs, where there's 2 or 3 hour videos where we present the recent die-offs of the emaciated whales, emaciated birds, etc., the extinction of the insects. And get yourself educated. Stop denying what's going on here. Because the world is dependent upon you, the few that are aware of what's really going on, to get yourselves educated and use your voice. You live in that one moment in history that the AI is going to come in now and they're going to take that away from you too. You live in that one little speck of history where you can help change it, where you can make a difference to every bird, mammal, animal, insect forever that can survive what they've already done to us. People might not know you'll ever exist, but you'll have that satisfaction, that peace that only comes with that kind of activity. It's a peace where you've done the right thing, and nobody can ever take that away from you. And you can never be denied that you took the high road, that you, despite the fact that you might not have felt that you had courage or fortitude, you didn't need it. You just needed a sound heart, and you needed the truth. You needed the honesty, and being honest and telling the truth is not difficult because you don't have to remember lies. You just got to be honest. And I provide you with enough information to get you started, to give you an incredible foundation, and to create, the idea of what I do is to create millions of little bastards just like me. That nobody's going to push around, nobody's going to trick or deceive or manipulate or coerce, nobody's going to break your will. You're going to be empowered with facts that this planet and these species, you're the stewards of this planet. It's your responsibility. You're responsible. It's your obligation. And it's not some United Nations or Greenpeace or anybody else. You're what this world is asking and begging for. It's your obligation. Not the next generation, not the generation after that, but this generation. The world depends upon this little group of people breaking the matrix, and you're up against absurdness, because when the artificial intelligence gets established over the next number of years, you'll never get that opportunity again, ever. That opportunity will be gone in a few years. And you don't have to have a big setup like I got. You don't have to be handsome like me or beautiful teeth like I got. Perfect nails like I got. Oh, that's right, I haven't got. You just gotta be honest, you gotta come out. And the industry can't take, if there's 10 people out there doing what I'm doing, the industry will fall apart. And it deserves to fall apart. It deserves to be nailed onto a wall. In fact, $185 miles per hour. And the whole world agreed today, for the first time in history probably, on something. And everybody on the planet, if you asked them in the world how fast was the winds in Jamaica, they're going to say 185 miles per hour. Pretty nerd. I paid attention. No matter who you talk to. And if you ask them, what did the wind gust, they're going to look at you like you had 6 heads on your shoulders. What? I gotta go. My brain hurts. But if somebody asks you, what did the winds gust, you're probably going to say at least 250 miles per hour. 250 miles per hour, hopefully, rather. You're going to say, and everything was turned into a projectile, despite the media didn't show it. Why would you build your home in that environment and do that to your loved ones and your children and your friends and your families and your pets? Why would you do that? Why would you do that? Are you better? Are you smarter? Do you really... If you survive that, you will not feel like rebuilding your house. The only reason you're going to rebuild your house is because you don't know any better. You don't have critical thinking skills. All you got to do is find someone like me, and you can start getting those skills right away. You start asking questions. Wait a second. What about the gust? If I was to see anybody in the mainstream media, I'm going to run up and kick them in the nuts. Even if they're a woman. I'm going to run up and kick them right in the nuts. And when the judge and the jury ask me why I do it, I'm going to say, I don't know. I don't know. There was a voice in my head that said, you better kick that crap in the nuts as quick as you can. I hope I don't. There's a lot of things I like to do to them, but I don't think the penalty for kicking one of them in the nuts is going to be too severe. I don't think the judge is going to lose too much sleep if I get a slap on the wrist for that one. But when I look in the mirror every morning after that, I can say, I kicked that fucker in the nuts, yeah? That was pretty cool. And when I die, and my head's tomb will say, here lies a man who kicked them in the nuts. And that'll balance out humanity for 1,000,000 years. Except it won't. We need 1,000,000 people like me out there. Whenever you see these people, everybody got to run up and kick them in the nuts. Oops. I was trying to help them. I didn't mean to step on these nuts. Somebody else kicked them in the nuts. I was just trying to help them. I am worn out. And tomorrow, this is going to hit Cuba. Now, what's the odds that this is going to go across that incredibly warm ocean and not pick up speed to a category 5 again? What's the odds? Realistically, the same odds as every media coming out and saying that it was 185 mile per hour winds with no gust. That's the odds. The odds of every media coming out and saying the winds were 185 miles per hour. And if somebody had told me today that all the media was going to come out today and say the winds are 185 mile per hour, have a nice day, I would have said, that's crazy talk. You're kooky conspiracy theorists. I don't deal in conspiracies. I deal in stuff that I can document and stuff that I can back up. I can back up every one of my assertions with the documentation. That's the only thing I'll talk about. I don't leave myself vulnerable or open because the industry thrives on that kind of person. They can take them apart. They can come out and pulverize them. I provide documentation for all of my assertions, for the most part, that are important. "185 mile per hour winds with no gust." What a crazy day. That's the craziest shit I ever heard. In all of my years, I've never heard anything crazier than that. That is batshit crazy. Except it's not. Batshit crazy is all the people that are not out there trying to correct the media and trying to educate the population and trying to be stewards of humanity, the species, and this planet. The evil industry in Japan, for instance, picked up 30 million one-ton bags. And they didn't stop growing food in the nuclear wasteland. These bags are full of radiation fallout. And they picked up 30 million of these one-ton bags. There's 150,000 sites like that right there. And they're growing food right alongside of it without their paper suits, which means it's for sale. And so when you eat food from a nuclear wasteland where they're not even allowed to spend the night, that is so radioactive that they picked up 30 million one-ton bags. 30 million one-ton bags is equal to 30 million one-ton pickup trucks that each can only take one of those bags because they're 2,200 pounds, wrapped around the entire planet bumper to bumper 6 times, which was 3% of the land in the Fukushima prefecture. The food was actually banned by 55 countries for a decade, but they replaced the people and removed the restrictions in the majority of those places. And why we're talking about that is quite the coincidence that 1,000 fuel pools worldwide are surrounded by farmland, as far as you can see. Every nuclear power plant, every fuel reprocessing facility, these are all hemorrhaging radiation through the fuel pools 24 hours a day through those skinny stacks. They all have incinerators to burn radiation, and they all have permission to dump radiation out through large pipes into the rivers, the estuaries, and the oceans. And they do. And we're in real trouble because the world is too busy screaming about things that mean nothing when you have an opportunity to do something very special and go after this industry. Because this industry will destroy your health in increments over a few decades, and your children's health. And the amount of people that participate in this is extraordinary. Telling a lie is very profitable to tell a lie. And if you're going to go and tell a lie regularly, you can have a very successful life. But if you have a moral compass and you come out and criticize the industry, you'll be ostracized from the entire planet like I am. This is a whale from a week ago. I know what you're saying, Dana, that can't be a whale. I've seen whales, Dana, that's not a whale. Yeah, that's a whale. That's a bride's whale. That's so emaciated. Now, we covered emaciated whales, coincidentally, every month, multiple times a month, month after month after month and year after year after year and over a decade, we've been covering these emaciated whales post-Fukushima. Because Japan not only is causing adverse conditions in the weather, and it does that, and there's many vectors. In fact, last night I kind of explained it a bit better. Every species of whale is showing up in groups, emaciated, severe starvation, because the food chain is broken, but also because they're bioaccumulating so much radiation, they can't uptake nutrition anymore. There's still food out there, not nowhere near what you would expect. Before the nuclear industry come by, our planet was incredible. Everywhere you went on this planet was an incredible amount of species. And you can trace the decline of the species worldwide to the nuclear industry. We're seeing killer whales after killer whales after killer whales that are unimaginably, which are eating up to 240 species, with their rib cages and their shoulder blades, their vertebrae and their tail. They're so emaciated. These killer whales eat over 240 species. So they can eat anything. They eat birds, they eat halibut, they eat octopus, they eat whales, they eat whatever they want. Sharks, you name it. So there's no reason they should show up emaciated, and that's what we're seeing worldwide. This one in particular was Belgium. Belgium, a washed-up orca, autopsy could not figure out why it died. I'm going to take a wild guess. I'm guessing starvation. I know that sounds crazy. Orca eats 240 species. 2 months ago, in New Zealand, they found a emaciated whale, killer whale. This is not something we've ever seen before. Hang on here, I'll get you some better pictures. This is not something we've ever seen before or tell of before. And they are the apex predator. The reason they're shown emaciated everywhere is because they have so much radiation per kilogram. That's their rib cage up there, for instance. They have so much radiation in their body that they can't uptake nutrition. They have cancer, they have leukemia, they have blood cancer. They're producing more white blood cells than red blood cells. This shouldn't be able to happen. And so the peanut head, the little thin tails, the rib cages, you can see the rib cages in that point sticking up. You can see the incredibly thin tails. These are all markers of starvation. But the geniuses in Belgium, for instance, who've done a necropsy, animal autopsy, couldn't figure out what killed this orca. You don't need to be a marine biologist or anything else to appreciate that this whale died of starvation. It looks like a deflated toy maybe or something like that, right? Like a balloon that got loose from a parade or something, landed on a beach. And they're the apex predator. They died because Fukushima broke the food chain. And your food chain included. And the industry's been doing this for 80 years. So radiation causes not just cancer, there's 865,000 extra cancers in Japan in the first year. On top of that, there was 13,646 out of 38,200 children with thyroid tumors of 2 centimeters. They shouldn't have any tumors on the thyroids at all. Now, the thyroid produces the hormones for the functions of your body and regulates your pituitary gland, your adrenaline gland, etc. So the children, 13,000 646 out of 38,200, 35.6% out of 38,200 children, when it used to be 1 in a million pre-Fukushima, are producing radioactive hormones for their 25-year development life, if they live that long. And you can't, this is from the gamma, but you can't have that particular attribute without having yin for your yang. In other words, radioactive isotope that seeks out the bone. Strontium, uranium, plutonium, americium, neptunium, etc. And so these are going to sequester in your bones. So the children and the birds and mammals and small animals are all producing permanently, post-Fukushima, radioactive hormones and radioactive stem cells. And there's nothing good can come out of that. In fact, in Japan, out of 100,000 live birds, neonates and infants, 14.2% need open heart surgery per 100,000 children. So you're talking about 14,200 children need open heart surgery for every 100,000 children across the country. These are just in unimaginable numbers. Obesity rates doubled in Japan in the first year. And obesity after a nuclear accident is a marker of radioactive brain damage. 6 out of 10 children in Fukushima Prefecture have diabetes. And the top medical clinic in Tokyo, which is metropolitan 36 million people, were expecting diabetes in the children from Fukushima. There's heart problems, liver problems, lung problems, respiratory, pituitary, thyroid, adrenaline, Alzheimer's, dementia, autism, diabetes, Down syndrome. As your hairdresser, already seen an increase in any of that in their regular clientele. And they will say, "Girl, I was just talking about that." And I know this is a pretty messed up show. It always is. Big shout out to James Lucid, who donated a whopping almost $300 yesterday. Bless your heart, my man. And if the world would help me, you'd be surprised at the changes I can make on my own. But you also be pretty pleased with the amount of people I can create that are articulated and ain't going to take any shit and know how to debate and know how to argue, know how to win the debates and know how to get into the debates and know how to bring this horrible, horrible, horrible story to the population. We need that done. And so I always felt, because I've produced over 3,000 of these types of presentations who have morphed into their own, whatever you want to call it. Because in order to sit here and try to bring the urgency to this story that is necessary, every day is exhausting. It's exhausting. What I did do today was I collected a lot of people from Jamaica, their YouTube channels. Now, if you go out on Twitter, there's also a Click Clock or a Tip Top or something. What is it? There's Clitter and Clip Clock, and there's a few bunch of these social networking sites, Facebook and Instant Scam, and there's all kinds of these social networking crackerhead medias that people are posting on, right? But on YouTube, it was scoured. I've seen so many AI videos today, it's not an accident. That wasn't an accident at all. That wasn't even close to an accident. And if anybody knows anything about me, you got to know how relentless I actually am in all the things I pursue and do. You got to know how relentless I can be, how dedicated to the job I get. This is what I do. I live this all day, every day, all night, every night. I'm not like this when I'm sitting in front of a camera. This is, you're looking at and listening to me. This is who I am. I don't take any shit from anybody on this planet. And I don't give it either. I'm here to try to bring peace and sensibility and rational and a lucid conversation, right? I'm here to educate the population in a very humble way. That's my contribution and my research expeditions, which I think are like, if you understood the nightmares that was 4 to 5 months a year on the ocean by myself from Vancouver to Alaska each year, in desperations looking for an oasis, you can't understand the heartbreaks. And the night I get ashore, I sit there in front of the camera and start telling the story. You know, last year I had 7 stents put in my heart valves, right? 7, which is the record for here in the province at the one time. And he flew in a team to do me. No one, they took over. There was no arguing, no debating. No one was allowed to touch me. There's doctors and nurses and everybody flew in, and they were all business. I was awake the whole time. They were all business, man. And I was up and walking. An hour later, next morning, I was freed. And that night, I'd done a show. And I haven't stopped since, again. I would have died that day if they didn't show up and do that. I was dying. And I'm grateful. Every day that I wake up, I'm grateful. And I'm focused. And I've always been, and I always will be, and trying to do the moral and ethical thing for this planet, and to go to war, and I'm not going to apologize to anybody for going to war every day. And I know a lot of people don't understand it. A lot of people, I'm not pretty, I'm not rich, I'm not famous, I'm not this, I'm not that, I'm old, I'm broken, I get all of it. But I'm still a good enough person to come here and do the best I can every day that I can do it. And I can't win every day, and I don't try to, because I'm not a young man anymore. But when I was young, I can guarantee you there was no quarters given. I done the work every day. I ran fleets. I stayed out on the ocean for 100 days at a time as a commercial diver, for instance. I ran the operations, I ran the fleets, and I dove 6 hours a day on the ocean floor, which is 2 marathons a day on the human body. And all of that, my whole life, was about this moment. Prepared me for this moment, and to give me, I hope, the fortitude and the courage to do the things I do every day. To be relentless, and to be a good person, to be honest, and to consider that the species need a voice because they don't speak. And if you know the difference, you should. And it's a wonderful thing. You feel very privileged to come out and speak for the species, because a lot of them don't even exist anymore because of the nuclear industry. These species disappeared because of Japan. We killed the oceans, and by proxy we heated them up. And so the cyclones, the typhoons, the supercell hurricanes, when they go over these dead oceans, these hot oceans that have no regulatory system to them anymore, no life, they create all this energy. And now the industry is going to haunt us for millions of years. We can't get rid of the radiation. It has to disappear on its own for millions of years. It's out there, it's covering the entire planet. For 80 years, it's been hemorrhaging into our environment, and it's never going to stop unless we stand up and come up with solutions and make it stop. We got to have a conversation. And I'm just repeating myself, so I'm going to give it up. I'm going to give it up. I don't know if I mentioned it, but did you know, ask anybody you know tomorrow and the next day and the day after how fast was the winds in Jamaica. And you know what they're going to tell you? They're going to tell you it was 185 miles per hour. And when you ask them, well, how fast was it gusting? They're going to look at you like you got 6 heads on your shoulder. And just maybe, you'll get a glint in their eyes and they might become part of the solution instead of the problem. I'm not guaranteeing it. I'm just saying miracles do happen. Is it pointless to rebuild Jamaica as the hurricanes will only get stronger than 185 miles per hour? I think we all agree on that now. Post-Fukushima nuclear fallout. I got 19 likes. I got 27 votes. Bless your hearts. I'm used to the censorship. You're probably not. I am. I don't do this for likes. I don't do it for clicks. I don't do it for votes. I do it so I can go to sleep tonight. Because I've done the best I could today. And I'm going to get up tomorrow and do the same fucking thing. Mark it down. Take it to the bank. When you come back, I'll always be here doing the best I can because that's really easy, despite the fact that for an old fart like me, it's exhausting. James got out a new song. I don't know if he was planning on putting out another one tonight. He's got 15 lousy views for an enormous amount of work that goes into his videos. Is absurd, by the way. We started the show off tonight with one of his songs. And it was called The Stranding of the Firth, F-I-R-T-H. You go to his website and type that in. And also put in atomic corruption, and put in nuclear exceptionalism, and put in radioactive cream boxes, and put in pink hydrogen, and Meltdown Queen, and put in the scientist and the blob, and less than a gram. And his another really beautiful song he put out, is a very haunting song, is the Radioactive Hudson, An Escapement Denied. And he's got 450 songs. There's some of my favorite ones. Everybody, he got different genres. Everybody has different genres, right? But those songs, if you listen to them with headphones on, any of the songs I just listed, what you're going to find out, including this song we're about to play, is the fact that that's very cool. That's very cool stuff. Is it pointless to rebuild Jamaica as the hurricanes will only get stronger post-Fukushima? I laid out my case. I think I'm pretty fair about it. I don't think I'm bigoted or prejudiced or biased. And we'll see everybody. And don't forget to get over there and subscribe. And I'm famous over there. James got my picture, one of my best pictures up there. I was a younger man. Out on research expeditions. We're going to play The Mechanism of Radioactive Flow. And I hope you have headphones on. I'm putting mine on as we speak. Because that's an amazing song. So was that one we played at the end last night. That was crazy. I think that was Lessons of Management Harm. That was an amazing song. And the one we started off with tonight and one we're going to end with is this song. Have a great night. Hugs for everybody. We'll see everybody on the next show. I'll be searching tomorrow for more documentation. We'll see you on the next one. God bless. Have a great night. Hugs for you and your friends, your families, and your loved ones, and your pets. We'll see you next time. Take care. You gotta check out the lyrics and the description on this song too.
It is rooting, it is built an escape from rooftop sheet to the channel mouth. Cesium follows water, it does not wait for permission, it reacts to weather, summer pulls it faster, rain makes it certain, channel K was redirected, it now connects the building to the harbor. Trium told the story, not an IAEA press release, not from an NRC meeting, just time passing through rainfall, the path was always there. This is not a discharge, it's a roof to trench, trench to port. The radioactive flow is quiet. The ocean circuit blanch, scrutinized tide pools Durnford, sailed the kill zone. They said Fukushima, they were mocked, they were harassed. The ocean confirmed them, no one apologized. Just gutters doing their job, and what the building sheds goes where water always goes. This is not a discharge, it's a roof to trench, trench to port. No mistake in the pattern, only motion. The agency observed, the ocean recorded. The contamination, it revealed it. The slope is the story, the channel is the record, and the corium still finds the sea.
Drag it along. They write their books, shake their hands, watch it sink into the sand. Call it heat, call it tide, call it anything but the crime. The blob don't burn, the blob don't kill, but the core still burn and the waste still spills. The blob don't kill, the blob don't burn, but the fuel still melts and the tides still turn. The blob don't burn.
radioactive Hudson rum, Indian Point, the record done. 60 years along the bed. The plan is closed, but not the end. The Hudson board, the daily waste, outfalls hidden, years erased. Permit signed, the crowd objected. Federal law kept it protected. Now old tech owns the site entire. Fuel and waste, the slow expire. 45,000 gallons stored. The court unlocked the outlet door. Radioactive Hudson, burning core. Old tech claims the dose is short. 45,000 gallons sent away. The Hudson bears it day by day. Water by day. The state declared the bill was passed. Save the Hudson, make it last. But old tech sued the bench, complied. The NRC will now decide. A law once meant to guard this stream was overruled in a legal scheme. Dolphin surface, sturgeon swam. Milligram counts can't show their path. Radioactive Hudson, hurting core. Old tech claims the dose is short. Oh, 45,000 gallons sent away. The Hudson bears it by day by day. They call it common, done before. Wastewater carried to the shore. Millennium tallies claim it's small, but none of that explains it all. The irony sharp, the ruling clear. Rights revised to serve Holtec here. Radioactive Hudson, hurting core. Holtec claims the dose is short. 45,000 gallons sent away. The Hudson bears it day by day. Say the Hudson, the voice is cold. The river bears the weight of from Buchanan to the Bay. Families live with what they say. 60 years a plant was run. The Hudson keeps what's been undone.